when they were looking at the characteristics of all of these different societies, they found that they were plant slanted or predominantly plant based, some more than others. Some were 98, 99%, and even some people within those communities were 100%, just by the nature of the way they live their lives.
This is the Healthy Lifestyle Solutions podcast, and I'm your host, Maya Acosta. If you're willing to go with me, together we can discover how simple lifestyle choices can help improve our quality of life and increase our longevity in a good way. Let's get started. And welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Lifestyle Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Maya Acosta. And Dr. Riz, today is Monday. Do you know what that means?
It's time for another episode of
Doctor in the House with our guest expert, Dr. Rizwan Bukhari. And we hope that you've been enjoying these last two episodes that we've done on Blue Zone Living. Today is episode 3. And we're also inviting you to challenge yourself for the next 30 days on implementing these ways of living. Before we get started, let's do an icebreaker. Are you ready?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay, this is another question that I came up with about Blue Zone Living. Dr. Riz, if you could create your own Blue Zone community event, what would it be? A group hike, a cooking workshop, or something entirely unique?
I think that's pretty easy for me. I enjoy the outdoors so much, and I love hiking, so it would be a group hike.
I love the idea of a group hike. We did have that experience with our friends when we all went in the van. And I prepared food for 3 days for 4 people. And we also hiked with food. So that was an entire experience of like quality time with people, healthy eating, exercise, and relaxation.
And getting out in nature.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, your turn to ask me a question.
Oh boy, okay. Okay, here's your question. Which Blue Zone do you think has the best secrets to longevity? Are you Team Okinawa, Team Sardinia, or another one?
Oh my gosh.
And maybe I get to give my opinion too.
Okay. All right. As soon as you said that, I immediately thought of Okinawa or Costa Rica. Now, I'm going to lean more towards Okinawa. So I've been watching these videos of this. They are ASMR videos where you see entire footage without anyone speaking, but you're just hearing the sounds of the environment. And I've been watching this one individual. He doesn't show his face, but he rides trains and records the entire experience. And some of my favorite train rides are in Japan. And and they're majestic. They're designed to show you the beauty and the nature of the location. I want to say that there's even one that goes to Okinawa or something like that. So I thought not only just all the things we already know. Oh, and not only do we know about the quality of life, but the studies that were done in terms of nature of forest bathing came from Japan. The entire region is heavily forested. Forest bathing is actually part of the culture because they have so much access to forests and trails. There are the tea ceremonies. There's just the lifestyle in many ways, even though in Japan they have a culture of working really, really hard also. But then there are so many things that complement the lifestyle that you and I are looking for.
Okay, good answer. So I'm Team Everything, but if I have to choose one, I'm going to be Team Loma Linda.
Why?
Because I'm very impressed that they are a blue zone within the confines of the United States. And considering our culture here, fast-paced lifestyles, work, fast food, not paying attention to yourself and your health and all that other stuff. Yet despite that, within our framework, they are a blue zone. So they've figured out something, in other words, maybe something we can learn from them about how to apply those concepts to our everyday lives. And, so not taking away from the other societies and other cultures that are also blue zones, but here's one within our own culture And so I think we can learn a lot from that.
Absolutely. And we should add also that the Blue Zone in Loma Linda, it consists of Seventh-day Adventists. So there's that whole spiritual practice as well. They vary in diet, but the healthiest ones are the vegetarian, vegan ones.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I think because of the religious influence there, there's a tremendous plant slant to their eating habits, and then you do tend to see a variety of different ones within that community,
Yeah.
extending from plant slant to all the way vegetarian and completely whole food plant based.
Yes. So speaking of plant slant, today's topic is about nutrition. So, welcome to the third episode of the Blue Zones Lifestyle Series, where we delve into the secrets of longevity and well being observed in the Blue Zones. In this installment, we explore the crucial role of nutrition, specifically the plant slant and eating in moderation, in promoting healthier and more fulfilling life. So, we're going to talk about the components that are found in that Power 9 principles of the Blue Zones, and also the category of a plant forward diet found in lifestyle medicine, because we've talked about the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So leave us comments below telling us how you've been doing with building community and moving naturally in your environment. And like I said, today we talk about food. And we probably won't spend as much time talking on this topic because we promote it heavily on the podcast. But if you are new to listening to this podcast in general, we first want to tell you what Blue Zones are, since we've been talking about them. National Geographic fellow Dan Buettner a few years ago traveled the country in search of the longest lived people that live long, healthy lives without having advanced chronic disease. And he found 5 regions throughout the world, and we've listed them. One is found in Japan, there's one in Costa Rica, one in California, Greece, and
Italy.
Italy, Sardinia, which is an island in itself, isn't it, Sardinia? And so those are the Blue Zones. And on this podcast, we talk about lifestyle medicine, which includes moving, being physically active, having a plant forward diet, managing your stress, building healthy relationships, and so much more. And so that's how we're combining the topic of Blue Zone living with lifestyle medicine. So one of the key principles that emerge from studying the Blue Zones is the emphasis on a plant-based diet. And Dr. Riz, people in these regions are not vegan. We're not talking about people that have 100% eliminated animal products and byproducts from their diet. We're talking about people who predominantly eat plant-based diets and then on occasion have meat, dairy, and other similar products.
Yeah, I think that, when they were looking at the characteristics of all of these different societies, they found that they were plant slanted or predominantly plant based, some more than others. Some were 98, 99%, and even some people within those communities were 100% just by the nature of the way they lived their lives. But what I think they found was that all of them were 90 to 95% plant-based.
Yes.
And and that means that they consumed a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, and nuts, and minimally processed foods, a minimal amount of meat.
Yes, I love that. And I was so happy when I heard about the Blue Zones, because by the time we learned about the Blue Zones, we were already a fully plant-based, living that lifestyle. Plant-based diets have been linked to a reduced risk of chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers. They are also associated with maintaining a healthy weight and supporting optimal gut health. By adopting a plant-forward diet, we nourish our bodies with essential nutrients while enjoying a wide array of delicious and satisfying foods. The way that I look at the standard American diet is the most convenient foods that are available to accommodate our very busy lifestyle. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of ways to look at the standard American diet. It is a diet that's evolved over the course of decades. Convenience is very much at the root of it. And then, quickness and ease of getting the food. So they make these foods tastier and tastier because they want to be able to sell the food to us. Now, the problem with that is that making a food more tasty, adding more salt, more oil, more sugar, and more fat doesn't make it more healthy. And so there's the conundrum there is that it's easier and it's tastier, but that doesn't make it more healthy for us. And in fact, it's not less healthy, but it's actually injurious to us,
Yes.
causing disease and cancer,
Yeah.
heart disease, high cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes, obesity. We
Yep.
have an obesity epidemic in our country. We have a diabetes epidemic in our country, and this is all a result of the poor food choices that we've made for many decades now.
Right. Also, when it comes to, like, for example, processed foods, the best way that I like to look at that as well is processed food is where all the good stuff has been removed. So the nutrients, especially if you deep fry and heavily processed food, you're taking out all the good stuff and you're putting in all the stuff that you probably don't want in your body, like additives and preservatives and other things that make, again, like you said, foods more addicting. So the standard American diet really consists of the majority being processed, quick, easy foods like hamburgers, hot dogs, and I'm really explaining it for listeners that may not even be local and might not know what that looks like. So pizzas, spaghettis, just foods that are just so convenient. All you have to do is go online and order it, or take it out of your freezer, and if it comes in a box or a package, and
Yeah,
so
or even, the 10 or 15 or 20 fast food restaurants that are within a square mile
that's
radius of your
right.
place.
Yes. Bringing it back to the blue zones is that people in those regions still prepare their foods, it looks like, on a regular basis. Many of them, depending on location, tend to enjoy like purple sweet potato. They like corn tortillas that are made by hand. For example, at one point growing up in my home, we cooked everything. Our dad would make a pizza from scratch. So we were used to that. And then life has had us so busy that we just gravitate towards convenient foods. And whoever runs the household many, many years ago, a lot of this processed food was basically push towards whoever ran the household to say, hey, it's more convenient for you to buy this in a can or in a box rather than cooking it from scratch. And it's become less frequent for one person to stay at home and do all the cooking and all the cleaning because almost everybody in the household works now,
Yeah, and that's very
depending.
interesting that you say that because cooking has become a lost art, right? There's not a whole lot of people who have, you don't grow up today with basic cooking skills,
Yes.
and or know how to cook food.
Yes. And so we're part of the organization Plant Pure Communities. We're pod leaders. That's what they call us. And basically, there are you can become a pod leader in your area. It's really a grassroots movement of wanting to support people in our community on how to get started towards eating more whole plant-based foods, which means that you're going to be cooking more from scratch, but there are ways to batch cook and to meal prep to facilitate all of that. So it doesn't have to be difficult, but you will be learning for the first time how to do a lot of this stuff.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we see in the Blue Zone Selector is what many people call the 80% rule, which means Blue Zone communities practice mindful eating and they follow an 80% rule. In other words, they stop eating when they feel 80% full, avoiding overeating and promoting calorie control. In Japan, they call this hare hachi bu, which means it's like you're eating, and then when you reach that point, you say hare hachi bu, and you're done. You're like satisfied. You're no longer hungry, but you're not eating in excess until you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think the concept behind that is if you stop when you're about 80% full, in a few minutes, you're going to feel comfortable. You no longer have those hunger pangs because what happens kind of from a physiologic standpoint is as the food begins to come from your stomach and hit your intestines, it starts to release actually certain hormones that give you satiety. So you don't have to eat till your stomach is completely full. You eat to about 80%, and you're going to start feeling that satiety in a few minutes.
That's right. And also the mindful eating, which there are tons and tons of books now associated with mindfulness and mindful eating. It really means that you're eating at a slower pace. You're paying attention to how your body is feeling when you're eating. You're really savoring every bite and enjoying it. And one of the better ways to enjoy your food is in company. What does longevity say about food and why we should eat less than rather than more?
Well, that's very interesting. And so, I mean, that's a whole another podcast or two or three in and of itself. But in a nutshell, there are studies that now show that by consuming less calories, we live longer. And the kind of at the base or root of that is that we need a little bit of adversity in our lives. Not a lot. We're not talking about being, the stress that we have on a daily basis from our work um, or the stress of war or something like that. But we need some stress in our lives, and different stressors in a reasonable amount cause our body to start doing repair processes and repairing our aging cells and repairing our DNA and repairing our proteins. And so a caloric restriction, that's a hard word or a tough word, but in other words, taking in less calories also starts those repair processes. So if we limit the number of calories we take, if we don't eat calories in excess, then we start to initiate pathways that repair our bodies and cause us to live longer.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that in the future, you're going to do a full episode on, for example, what is intermittent fasting. But if you can tell us, so one is just eating less calories. And I appreciate what you just said was that it is a hard word to use, so or term. So we're not encouraging dieting or restricting. All we're just telling you about the science that once you've achieved your ideal goal of eating whole food, plant-based, and you're comfortable with that, and you have a healthy relationship with food, and everything's going well, you can take your health to the next level by eating a little bit less rather than eating more.
So I think you make an important point, and more important than anything in anything I teach in life is the broad strokes. What's going to get you the low-hanging fruit or the biggest bang for your buck? And so more than anything, what's important is starting a plant-forward lifestyle. Okay, that's going to really propel your health to the next level. Okay, and so and that's really what's most important. Then what I say, and that's why I'm kind of getting into it now, is I've been doing this for 6 years. So living a plant-based lifestyle, whole food plant-based lifestyle is very second nature to me. And so it's not, I'm done with that learning curve. So now I'm kind of looking at, well, how can you tweak it?
That's right.
What can you do to make it better? What can you do to be healthier? And that's when you start looking into, kind of limiting your calories or fasting or intermittent fasting. And what does all that mean? And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of benefit to those things, but, you're going to get more benefit doing those things, and living a bad lifestyle isn't going to really help a lot. These are kind of tweaks that you can do on top of it.
Yeah.
So I think that there is benefit in limiting your calories over the course of your lifetime, and there's also benefit in kind of traditional fasting, intermittent fasting, and maybe even some longer fasting on an occasional basis.
Right. Well, maybe in the future you can do just an entire episode on what that means for people that want to tweak their lifestyle. So
Well,
that's
absolutely. In fact, stay tuned, folks, because I really do have a strong interest in this longevity and aging field, and so there's going to be as I learn more, I want to share it with you guys and on podcasts.
absolutely. And so this is what we're talking about for the blue zones. What we learned from the blue zones is having a predominantly plant-based lifestyle and then eating, till you're about 80% following. I don't even use the word full. It's following the 80% rule, which means that you eat until you're 80% there in terms of your nutrition. I want to show you two books that I would recommend if you're just getting started. I've had the guests of both of these books on the show. And so many times people say, well, when I get started on this way of living, eating more plants, it's expensive. And really what people are referring to is the fact that if you go to a vegan plant-based restaurant, you're going to pay for the cost of someone else preparing the meal for you, someone else doing the groceries for you, and someone else creating the environment and the overhead costs of running a restaurant. That's why these restaurants are expensive. If you cook at home, it's less expensive. And Tony Okamoto was on our podcast. It's called Plant-Based on a Budget, Quick and Easy. She was on the show this year promoting this book, and she really goes into detail about how she calculated how much it would cost per meal There was a time when she herself had a lot of financial restrictions, and so she learned to eat plant-based on a budget, and that's how her website came about. And she actually runs a blog. So I highly recommend you see all the tabs I have here, the marks, the pages that I've saved because of the recipes that I really enjoy. And the other one is by the ladies, Jane and Ann Esselstyn. They have the book called Be a Plant-Based Woman Warrior. And look at how much information is in here. Lots and lots of recipes. They are known for making bowls. I call them Buddha bowls, but there are breakfast bowls, lunch bowls, dinner bowls. Basically having layering your food in a way where you're not so much relying on a recipe and getting all the ingredients that are recommended, say from How Not to Die, Dr. Michael Greger's Daily Dozen. That's another app that I recommend, the Daily Dozen. And often throughout the podcast, I do cover the field of plant-based nutrition. But for this episode, since it does align nicely, the teachings of the Blue Zones with lifestyle medicine, then I thought, let's give you additional resources in case you haven't tuned in.
Sounds good. I love that cookbook by Tony Okamoto.
Absolutely. So here are some practical tips for a plant slant diet. Number one, fill your plate with color. So even when you're doing groceries, think of all the foods that you're not used to eating, because in many ways we're used to eating the burger or the pizza or the steak. Vegetables and fruits have so many more colors. So aim to have a variety of colors on the plate, as different colors indicate a range of nutrients.
I encourage people not to get only a variety of colors within a food group, but then there's this fun game about, how many different colors can you put on your plate? Because it's not only just visually satisfying, but it's very, very healthy for you. And I also play this game where I can say how many different types of plants can I eat in a day, or can I eat in a week? And that variety really lends itself to getting you all a tremendous spectrum of minerals, vitamins, phytonutrients, and so it's really, really healthy for you that way.
Yes.
Stuff you can't get in processed foods and in animal-based foods.
Right. We also encourage you to get things that are seasonal. So, for example, right now, I think you were saying that the blueberries or the blackberries are probably towards the end of the season, but in the last couple of months, we have enjoyed blackberries like you wouldn't believe it. And we go to Target, which is right next door, and we get the organic ones. If you look at the list of the Dirty Dozen, these are the vegetables and fruits that are the most heavily sprayed with pesticides. So when possible, we try to get organic berries. That's strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. Frozen are less expensive, and they're frozen right after they're picked. If you cannot afford organic, Dr. Greger says to rinse your produce nicely so that you can get some of that stuff that gets exposed to pesticides. Tomatoes also are part of the Dirty Dozen. And then, so that's another tip. The other one is look into meal prepping and batch cooking. These are simple ways of learning how to have staples in the house and making it easier so that you're not relying on eating out all the time. And it even happens to us because I get really busy with work, and then sometimes I don't have time to cook. So you have to plan ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, and these are the same techniques that people use even when they're not plant-based. So you can just kind of bring these meal prepping and batch cooking to the plant-based world, and it helps make your life easier.
Yeah. Also, I want to add that there are certain things that we really enjoy that a lot of people don't eat. For example, pomegranate seeds. When pomegranates, the large, bright orange, they look like oranges, but they're bright red when they're just ready, and you find them in the produce section, and you cut them, you slice them nicely. There are videos on how to do that, and you just eat the seeds. We both enjoy those, rich in antioxidants. And people have asked me in the past, like, how do you eat them? And it's like, well, we take the kernels and we just snack on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that eating this way opens your world up to a whole new world of foods. It's fascinating, kind of how many there's thousands and thousands of plants out there that you can eat, and so there's just so much to explore and learn, and find, you'll find the things that you really like.
Right.
And then, the seasonality kind of lends itself to exploring new things as well.
Yes, and you can try different supermarkets. So, like, I go to Target for berries, but then I go to Trader Joe's, and I love the small little cucumbers. Like the English cucumbers are so delicious as opposed to the standard cucumber that we have always known here in the States. You can go to Sprouts and try, actually, they have sprouts, the real sprouts that you can put in sandwiches over a salad. So every grocery store has its own specialty. So if you can have access to that, that would be great.
Yeah, and I'll throw in there that ethnic markets really do lend themselves well to plant-based. So, kind of the uh, uh, you might go to the Indian bazaar or the Korean food store. All of these give you the opportunity to explore different types of plant foods.
Exactly. And the prices are so affordable, especially with spices, because eating this way, we have discovered that we use a lot of spices depending on the
Yep.
flavors that we want. So if we're having, you know, we might eat two or three different types of rice, the whole grain rice, the long, not the whole grain, but the long grain rice, jasmine rice, basmati rice, which I think is long grain, brown rice, black rice.
Yeah.
Same thing with legumes.
And you mentioned spices, and that's I think, another important part of a kind of a plant slant diet is we encourage you to explore the different spices that exist out there, and it helps
Right.
you replace kind of the standard American just salt and pepper approach to the life. And because salt is actually very, very bad for you, all the sodium
Yeah.
leads to a significant amount of hypertension in our society. But so you can have other spices out there. There's turmeric, there's cumin, there's coriander, there's cayenne pepper. There's just so many spices out there to explore and look at and use that add flavor and variety to your dishes.
Absolutely. There's so much more that we can talk about when it comes to nutrition, but stay tuned. Follow the podcast, Healthy Lifestyle Solutions, so that you can hear what some of the health experts are saying about why you want to incorporate more of a plant forward diet into your life. As you know, we bring in doctors, physicians, dietitians to talk about these topics. And I often give tips along the way, especially at the beginning of the year. I give a lot of tips on how to travel and stay healthy. How to do groceries, basically how to navigate the grocery store. So we offer those sorts of tips.
Yeah, I mean, we could go so deep into the science of nutrition. There's so much out there, and there's just so much about nutrition. It's the science of nutrition and then the actual practical application of it, and so much to explore and learn.
That's right. So, by adopting a plant forward diet and following the 80% rule, we can experience the health benefits and nourishment that the Blue Zone communities enjoy. Incorporating more plant based foods and mindful eating practices into our daily lives helps us achieve optimal nutrition, maintain a healthy weight, and reduce the risk of chronic diseases. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Blue Zone's Lifestyle Series, where we delve into the significance of downshifting in promoting longevity and overall well being. Till next time, friends, enjoy Blue Zone living. You've been listening to the Healthy Lifestyle Solutions podcast with your host, Maya Acosta. If you've enjoyed this content, please share with one friend who can benefit. You can also leave us a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/HLS. This helps us to spread our message. As always, thank you for being a listener.